Hello, my name is Grant Singh. I'm the founder of GTM Academy, and I have coached around 20 entrepreneurs making over 10k a month. And this video, I'm going to be breaking down how you make sure that you don't get sucked into the day-to-day of the business and you can actually stay on top of things. The thing that I coach people in is time management, right? Discipline, making sure that they're doing the things that they need to do to scale and leverage their own time. So let's get into it. What do I mean by working on the business? Working on the business is focusing on tasks that will actually help the business to grow. Working in the business is focusing on the day-to-day delivery where you're actually just essentially working through the operation. Okay? That's the two kind of categories where your time falls into. Or you're working on the business or you're working in the business. People that work in the business too much will not grow the business, and the business will start to become stagnant, and as a result of that, they won't actually scale as much as they can. If you work on the business, you're allowed to make sure that your operations are scaling. You're allowed to make sure that you've got a clear vision of where you want to be. And you also make sure that what you're doing in the day-to-day actually aligns with where you're headed. Okay? So working on the business is essential if you want to scale. Okay? So why do people struggle with this? It's a really good question. And it's honestly it's actually quite sad to see a lot of entrepreneurs get into a point where they have a great product, they've got a great delivery, they've got loads of passion for what they want to do, but then they struggle to actually grow the business because they're spending too much time working in the business and not on the business. So how the hell do you counter this? And the first thing that you've got to realize is that it's a perspective shift. If you do work too much in the business, your business will not grow. Okay? That's the first truth that you've got to accept. If I just keep working in the business, it's not going to grow as quick, okay? Once you start to accept that truth, your brain starts to then think about, okay, well, what the hell do I need to do to make sure I'm focusing on working on the business as well, right? Now, this is a hard conversation to have with people because sometimes I work with clients and it's like, okay, I can't work on the business because I'm flat out on delivery. And I'm like, okay, great. How much money are you making? And they might be like, oh, I'm making like 5k a month. Maybe I'm making 10k a month. I'm like, okay, great. If you just focus on delivery, let's play this out for the next 6 months. If you just do what you're doing now, will you make any more money? No. Okay. You're going to make the same amount of money because you're maxed out with your client, you've maxed out capacity, and you can't take anything else on. And if you can't take anything else on, you can't scale the business. If you can't scale the business, you're not going to make more money. So that's why I start with people. I say, imagine you continue with the split that you currently have of how much you're working on the business and how much you're working in the business. Okay. If you're a little bit confused about how to do this, what I'd recommend is that you sit down and you look at your calendar. If you're not using your calendar, you need to get on it, right? You need to start scheduling your tasks. And even if you want to schedule in advance, at the end of each day, actually just plot out like, oh, I spent this much time doing this, then I spent this much time doing this, then I spent about 4 hours doing nothing on TikTok, and then I did another 2 hours because I felt guilty about that, right? Actually put it on your calendar about what you're doing so that over the course of the week, you gather data on how much time you spend on different things. Without this data, it's really difficult to make decisions about where you should be spending your time, okay? We'll get into that on another session, but the main thing that I want to get you guys to focus in on is if I want to actually spend more time working on the business, firstly, I need to understand what I'm currently doing, okay? So just auditing yourself and saying, right, at the moment I'm spending, let's say you're working a 40-hour work week, I'm spending 35 hours in the business and 5 hours on the business, okay? Is that 5 hours on the business enough to allow you to scale? And this is where we've got to do a little bit more deep work, right? So what I'd ask people, and the problem that most people have when I ask this question is that they don't think big enough. And I ask them, okay, where is the business going? What's the long-term vision? What are you trying to move towards? Okay. And some people will be like, oh, like let's say you're at 10k a month and you want to hit 15k a month. Like, I want to hit 15k a month. Okay. You probably are fine then to stick to doing like 5 hours on the business. Okay. But if you're actually really ambitious and you're hitting 10k a month and you want to hit to, I don't know, let's say like 50k a month, your 5 hours on the business probably aren't going to be enough. You're probably going to need a lot more than that. You might need to hire. You might need to bring staff in. You might need to look at offering a different service. You might need to look at changing the way that you actually deliver your service. You might need to look at building out courses or building out SOPs so that when you are delivering, like, you can do it in a short amount of time. Okay. These kind of ideas only come up when you contextualize where you currently are and where you want to be. That difference, the bigger the difference, right, between where you are now and where you want to be, typically is like strongly correlated with how much time you need to spend working on the business compared to how much time you need to spend working in the business. If you're really far away from where you want to be, you probably need to do a lot more work on the business. Okay. And just to put this into context, let me think of a client that I've had this issue with. Okay, so I've got one client at the moment, he's an agency owner, and with the work that he was doing, he would take clients on and he would do all the delivery himself. And I was like, right, okay, talk me through like what your typical weeks looks like. And he said, okay, I just brought on these 2 clients, so I spend about 12 hours over the course of this week on each client, onboarding them and doing this setup and doing these like website stuff and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, right, okay. If that's what you're doing when you onboard a client, do you think that that's actually where you should be spending your time? Like, are you leveraging your time effectively here? No, because you're just doing delivery. What if you spent that time on acquiring new leads, calling up customers, and improving the sales process? Would that actually make you more money? Yes. Okay. If that would make you more money, could you then outsource your delivery? Yes, absolutely. He said like his delivery is really easy to outsource. He's just not done it yet. Okay. And this is where like a lot of entrepreneurs have the chicken and the egg kind of predicament, where they'll get to a point where they're like, okay, let's say they need to hire or they need to outsource. Like, okay, I need to outsource, but I need to get more money to outsource. And I'm like, right, okay. How are you going to get more money? They're like, oh, well, I need to grow what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, how do you need to grow what you're doing? Oh, I need more time. Okay, how are we going to get more time? I need to outsource. It's like, right, well, we're just going in circles here, okay? What action can you actually take off the back of this? I need to outsource. Oh, but I don't want to outsource yet because I don't have that much excess cash, right? And I would say don't outsource too early, right? Don't hire too early, because if you don't have the money to fund it, you might end up putting yourself in a more difficult situation. And I was almost there. And trust me, it's not somewhere that you want to be, okay? When I had Adnan, we were in a position where we were making enough consistent cash to actually uphold Adnan's salary. And it got to the point where I was like, right, like this is actually really difficult. I actually think I hired Adnan too early. I should have hired him a little bit later when we had more income. I don't actually know whether or not that's true, because realistically hiring Adnan allowed us to make more income over a longer period of time because the investment paid off. So it's hard to make that decision, but I would say that if you've got enough excess cash, right, or you've got a bit of savings, you need to use that money to outsource, right? Because if your current operations don't allow you to get more customers in and scale, you're going to stay stuck. You've got to make the choice to invest. And if you don't make the choice to invest, you will stay in the same position as you currently are. And I think that's what so many entrepreneurs get wrong. They don't want to take the risk of outsourcing. Some people say like, oh, what if I outsource and like the delivery's not the same level as mine? They become control freaks of like, oh, but like I'm special and like the level of detail that I give to my work is different and my experience and all this kind of waffle, right? All that I really hear is that, okay, you're not willing to invest long term, because realistically, if you've learned something, someone else can probably learn it as well. And the other thing is that you might be a bad leader, because realistically, if someone else can learn what you know, the question is, can you actually teach what you know properly? And those are the two questions that come up when it comes to outsourcing. And if we can get past those two, and it's like, okay, no, I can find someone that's got the right skill set, and yes, I can actually teach them the things that they need to know, then the next thing is, okay, am I actually willing to invest in working with someone new? Am I actually willing to invest in freeing up my time and getting my time back so that I can spend more time scaling the business? If the answer is no to that, good luck. You're going to probably stay stuck. you have to make the choice that I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to try and outsource. I'm going to try and employ someone so that I can have my time back, so that I can scale. Now, here's the caveat, and it's a big caveat. I would only do this if you have a predictable client acquisition system. Okay? This is the mistake that I made. I didn't have a predictable client acquisition system. We weren't using ads then. Like, we were just basically operating off referrals, which meant that there was basically some sort of capacity that we were going to hit. And once we hit that, it was very difficult to acquire new clients. So what I would advise, and what we're fortunately in the position now of, like, I know that if I want to hire a new employee, I've got to think, okay, how much money would I spend on ads? What would my return be? And what time would this employee give me in return for the time that I would get back? Okay, so I can actually sit down and do the maths on this. If you can't do the maths on how much money you would make and how you're going to scale, you probably aren't in a position to outsource, and you've got to really sit down and think about, okay, well, what the hell does my client acquisition system look like? And how do I improve it so that I've got a better understanding of the numbers? Okay. Once you do have an understanding of your numbers, and once you can say, yes, X amount of input will give me X amount of Y amount of output, then it really comes down to, do you want to bet on yourself? And I think if you're an entrepreneur, if you've started your own business, like, that feeling to bet on yourself is there. And like, you've just got to kind of nurture it a little bit. You got to be like, yeah, man, why wouldn't I bet on myself? Why wouldn't I believe in myself? Why wouldn't I back myself in terms of me hiring? That's going to help the business. Like, you've got to start thinking like that if you really want to be able to scale. Because not only are you going to have to do it once, like, if you're trying to build an empire, you're going to have to hire multiple times. You're going to have to throw money at things and know that sometimes I'm not going to get a return off this. And that is actually more important, because you'll learn something from that. Because when you find something else that can give you a return, and this is what I think is actually really interesting about this, is that spending money on ads gives you a financial return. Spending money on people gives you a time return. That is where real richness, that's where real freedom, that's where wealth is actually built. Okay? When you can buy back your time and not just buy money. Okay? Because I see these people, I speak to these people that are making 5 times, 10 times more than me. And I look at them and I'm like, okay, but how much time do you actually have? None. Okay, so like, you're stuck at the level that you're at, and I don't know how long you're going to be stuck there for. Because what you've done is you've built a system that is not capable of expanding any further, because you refuse to hire the right people. You refuse to build out the systems and processes that you need to outsource. Okay, so coming back to that question of, how do I know, like, how do I make sure that I'm not spending too much time in the business and I'm allowing myself to focus on things like that's actually working on the business? What I've been talking about there is absolutely relevant if you're a little bit more advanced. Okay, if you're earlier in the business stage, like, the basic thing that you need to do is list the things that, like, just get a pen and paper or get your notes up and just write down the things that are going to help you to scale the business. Okay, like, just list all those things, make a bullet point, like, put as many things as come to your mind, put them down. Okay, what's going to help me to grow and scale the business? Okay, make that list. Then make the list of, these are the things that I need to do to maintain and deliver within the business. Okay, that might be like admin stuff, that might be finances, that might be client delivery. These are the things that you're like, okay, this is what I need to do. When you've got these two lists, every Monday, okay, or maybe Sunday night, before you plan out your week, look at these two lists and be like, okay, how do I make sure that not all my time is focused on delivery, but I spend a minimum of X amount of hours on working on the business? Set a goal for yourself. Say, this week, I'm going to spend 5 hours working on the business. Next week, 6 hours. Next week, 10 hours. Okay? Start to make better boundaries, because that's what it is, right? And this is what people get wrong. People think, I don't have the time. You do have the time. You have to find the time. You don't have an option in this. You don't have a say in this of do I or do I not have the time. You have to find the time to allow you to scale the business, right? And if you don't, you're going to be stuck, okay? It's as simple as that. If you don't find time to grow the business will stay the same or it will shrink, okay? So those are your two options. If that means cutting off a customer, okay, which you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I can't do that because I don't have the finances, which I understand, right? Like sometimes from a financial point of view, you can't cut off a customer. You can't step away from a customer. You can't deliver any less of a service because that's going to make you, that's basically going to put you in debt. It's going to stop the business from functioning. You're not going to be able to put food on the table. Okay, I understand that, right? If that's the case, what you've got to do is you've got to think, how can I leverage the time that I'm focused on delivery to shift that into working on the business? So what I mean by that is, for example, if it's about, okay, the rate of acquisition is not very high because I'm spending all my time on delivery, right? Let's say you're a coaching business and you're spending all your time coaching instead of actually acquiring new customers. When you coach excessively, right, and you're spending loads of time on coaching, you've got to think, you've got to spend some time, right? Even if it's an hour, 2 hours a week. How do I make it so that the coaching that I'm doing has got higher leverage? So I might coach for a week, and after every coaching session, I might ask people, like it takes 5 seconds, hey, do you know anyone that could benefit from our coaching? That is you still focusing a lot on delivery, but you're leveraging your time a little bit better, okay? It might be that instead of you coaching loads, and then at the end of the day, you spending 4 hours like sitting down and doing loads of note taking and like writing that notes up and sending it to someone, you invest in an AI note taker, okay? Like, what have you got to do to allow your time spent to be worth more, right, within those like 40 hours or whatever it is that you're working? If you're not consistently doing that week in, week out, like, I'm gonna be honest, you might as well scrap the business and try something else. Like, genuinely, because you will gain more experience, you'll gain more leverage the longer that you're doing something, but ultimately, if you're not giving yourself enough time and space to grow, and you're dissatisfied with the rate of growth that you have, you can't expect that to change if you're not doing anything to change it. Like, it's just simple, right? Like, if you're only acquiring 2 new coaching customers a month, and you're like, I need to be acquiring 8 new customers a month, and that difference between what you're currently at and what you want to be at, if that's too big, and you're not doing anything to go from 2 to 8, like, you got to question, well, what the hell am I doing? And should I really continue with what I'm doing? Okay. So hopefully that's useful. Hopefully that's a bit of a wake up call as well to some people of like, make the decision, invest if you need to invest, make sure that you're allocating enough time, set those boundaries in place, because these are the things that I see crop up over and over again with my coaching clients, even people that I don't coach, right? Like, people come to me, they'll ask me about stuff, they'll be like, oh, what do I do about this? Or I'll see it when I'm networking with other business owners. And I'm like, the problem is so obvious to me because that's the lens that I look through it at. How do you actually scale the business? Look at the resources that you have. Time is one of the most important resources. You got time, money, skills, right? Those are typically the 3 resources, okay? You got time, money, skills. You're using all your money. You can't grow the skills any faster than you're currently growing. How do you use your time differently? That's what I'll take people through. How do you use your time to grow and scale the business faster than ever before? Hopefully, this conversation, this dialogue, this rant to some degree has been useful for you to sit down and think, okay, what am I doing with my time? And what should I be doing with my time? And if you can take anything away from this, it's that you should look at your calendar and you should scrutinize it like hell to be like, okay, does my time spent reflect the way that my time should be spent to get me to the goals that I've set out for myself? We're going to finish up there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and forget enjoyed it actually. Hopefully you guys take something from that. Okay, that's what I'd want. I don't really care if you guys like it and you're happy after listening to it. I care about if it's making a positive impact in your life, if it's taking you closer to your goals, if you're making progress faster. That's what I want to see from this. So hopefully that allows you to get to where you want to go a little bit quicker. If you've got any questions, make sure you drop them down below. And of course, you can expect more content like this from myself, and I'll speak to you guys later.